Well, after 20 some years, this 1989 Lincoln Town Car is finally exhibiting signs that the heater core is leaking. There is no evidence in terms of coolant on the carpet or that kind of thing. There is somewhat of a loss of coolant from the system, not enough to warrant any major attention, but I believe that's the way it normally works. There's some very good instructions out on the internet how to remove these heater cores, but on this particular era of Ford Lincolns, the only way you can get it out is by pulling the dash back. And to start with that process, you have to get some of the equipment under the hood situated first. I'm going to try to make a quick video. I like precise videos. They look good on YouTube. I've seen others, and I'm not sure I'm up to that, but if it appears to be very short, that's because of the time factor involved in this. So the first thing I was going to do after copying some instructions on how to remove a heater core is take out what I call this hood cowling. It runs where the gasket seals the hood down. That kind of blocks your access to the heater pipes, which are tucked in way in there. I'm not even sure if you can see them. Once I take that out, I will set that aside and will give me a lot more working room in here. I've taken this out before to replace heater core hoses on the underside of the hood, but this will be the first time I've had to do it to do something else. Okay, the first thing I did was disconnect the battery ground strap. Probably a very safe thing to do. The next thing is I'm going to pull out a series of 7/16 nuts which hold down this cowling, and that's what I'm going to do now. There might be 5 or 6 of them across the whole length of the thing. You're going to have to remove this map sensor, which is mounted directly above the heater pipes. It actually bolts into an area above the cowling here, which is what I was intending to remove anyway. So that's now unbolted. That's one first thing. Okay, I have removed the bands on the heater hoses that secure them to the heater core, and I'm going to pull those back. There'll probably be some loss of fluid, so I brought this large pan to try to catch that underneath the car. The less slop, the better. I've got some newspaper down there, and my removal tool, which is pretty handy, is this ice pick type of hook that you can use to pull back the hoses. I think it probably is self-explanatory when you see it on the film here. Okay, I have removed the heater hoses. Took some work. I have moved them out of the way. Try not to spill any coolant. Tucking this one up here. I had to mangle the end of the hose to get it off because tools were not that easy to work with back there. So that's where I'm at now. I've also disconnected these vacuum lines. I actually snipped these. They wouldn't come out of the thermal lockout switch. I had them capped off anyway. So with the grommet for those pushed back in and another vacuum hose removed, I move on to the next step. Okay, moving to the inside of the car, you have to remove the dash pad first, and that means taking out the screws in the defrost vent area that hold the front of this piece to the top of the dash. There's also a screw on the side over here inside the door pillar. Not sure if that's visible, but that's what we're going to do next. On removing the dash pad, there's also a series of screws underneath the front of the dash pad. You want to check and remove all of those across the top of the dash. Okay, I have lifted the dash pad out and set it aside. And this is what you're going to see when you have done that. Using gentle pressure, remove the screws that these plastic retainers are mounted into the lower dasher. These are these knee panels that have to come out. Remove them on both sides. There's a couple of odd screws in here. You'll be able to find them when you get under the dash. Take those out of the car. Okay, I've now removed these insulator panels from underneath the dash. Not really that big of a job. They're They're pretty easy to come out. Set the hardware somewhere if you got room to keep it neat, so that you know what goes with what to reinstall it. Next item on the list are these lower side panels on both sides. I can see 2 screws holding them in, but they're also tucked under the threshold plate here. You'll probably have to loosen a screw there or two to get that to come out. This is a view of the right side kick panel after I've taken it out, just to kind of give you an idea what it looks like. There's a plastic retainer clip on the inside footwell area where your feet are. Other than that, it's just a screw. Remove the metal piece underneath the steering column. It's held in by a couple of Phillips screws at the bottom, and you can just pull it down because it's just held in place by position. Okay, remove the cover underneath the steering wheel. That's this item I have in my hand. There's essentially 5 screws holding this in place. Then you can pull this band off around the neck of this, just behind the steering wheel. It's really more of a kind of a pull apart and separate type of item. Really can't give an explanation there. Since the top piece of the cowling has to come off to pull this dash out, you're going to have to take the front of the instrument panel over here off. This strip here just pops out and reveals screws along here that you have to remove to take this front cover off. You'll have to take off the end of the antenna switch activation. That is a small little piece that by depressing the metal on the inside with a tiny screwdriver, you can pull this off directly. It's tricky. You have to look behind it. There's a little depression area to push that metal before you want to end up breaking this switch. The others are recessed in here. They won't be affected by pulling back the dash piece. To remove this instrument panel cover, it's best you have to put the steering shift lever, I should say the shift lever, in a low gear to get it down and out of the way. Remove the screw and pull this dash plate off. So make sure the car doesn't roll by either blocking the wheels, because you're going to have it out of park. To get the dash facing off here, this plastic stuff, you have to pull up and get this off the studs, and then it pretty much just lifts out like that. I removed this before on other work, so I wasn't unfamiliar with it. It's slightly a pain. Then you can remove this top cowling because you have the clearance to take it off the steering wheel. Okay, this is how the dash looks so far, with the face panel removed, the steering gear revealed, making clearances, and we'll proceed on. Okay, you have to remove this glove box door, which is really the glove box. I find that in order to access that, there's two nuts, bolts down here that hold on. One holds a footlight, and the other is I'm not sure that part of that. And then there's 3 screws under here holding the door on here, so you have to work those loose. It's a total of 5 securing items. Don't let this glove box fool you. It's pretty heavy. Once you release these screws, it's going to drop fast, so be prepared for that. And again, like I said, there's a couple other. There's a interior light that's hanging here along with a relay of some kind. Those I had to loosen to get this glove box out of here. So this is what we're looking at now. This is the lower floor heat vent. It's held in really by one screw that you have to remove. The other one is really a slip-on type retaining screw, and then there's a retaining plastic stud up here that you just pull out. I was able to leverage this thing over to the driver's side by pulling down and working this retainer out, so that kind of clears up the area underneath the dash there at the hump. Here's the collection of parts so far, just to give you an idea of what you got to stack up and put in a safe place. Perhaps maybe even taping some of the retainers in their positions so you know that they went there, or else trying to keep them in their position so that if you disturb them, they don't fall out on the floor on you. Okay, there were two nuts down here in the lower plenum to be removed off these studs. That has been done. I removed this hose from this fitting back in the underside of the area we were just working in with those nuts. It pulls off of a outlet in there, this crinkly white hose, and I'd say push that out of the way. There's another vacuum line up here that comes off as well. Now here is a vacuum connector that you'll have to disconnect under the dash. It's for me it was directly behind the radio. It could be pushed up or down depending on how it was moved around in there, because I've done radio work on this car, and this item has to be disconnected. I also disconnected this wiring block to the plenum, as well as a vacuum line that snakes around the side here. Termination point is back in the back there, but you can obviously remember that, I trust, by the location of the wire. Okay, at this time I'm just kind of playing with this plenum. It's this big plastic box down here inside the dash. It looks to be about bigger than the dash. Anyway, it appears loose to me, and it's loose on both ends. So I'm going to proceed with the further instructions on removing the dash back so we can take this thing out. The other thing I'm thinking about is there's a screw on the A-pillar, and the dash framing padding or whatever is tucked behind that. And I think I'm going to take that screw out. There's probably one on the other side for sure, so that if I run into problems, this thing won't be balking my attempt to pull back the dash. Hey, removing the dash screws at the windshield is going to require a very tight tolerance screwdriver. In other words, a ratchet, but you're going to have one that's pretty much like this. This is the best I could do. A regular ratchet and socket with a driver on the end just wouldn't do it. They must have put these screws in before they installed the windshield, so there's very tight clearance up at the front. Okay, after removing the dash screws, I've been able to plug the heater core pipes, and I've also been able to pull this thing out. It made a squeak and it came out. Now I just got to try to get it out from under the dash. You can see the dash is pulled out more on this side, the passenger side, than it is on the driver's side, because this is where you need the room. Lifting the dash up is the next step to getting this box out of here. That's fairly sizable. I don't know if the camera shows much of this right now, but that's the plenum back there. It's got a white upper half to it. Okay, I've got this unit out. It was very wise to plug these holes because there's not a lot of operating room for this. The last two things I have to do is take these two vacuum lines off here, and I probably ought to mark them so I know which one goes where. It may not matter, but I'm not taking any chances at this point. Okay, this is what you're looking at when you pull this thing out of the car. I mean, it's a monster. And of course, the heater core is mounted inside this top plate up here that we're going to open here in a second. I don't see any obvious liquids around, but with a coolant system, a pinhole leak can be pretty bad if there's pressure in the system. Okay, I was able to remove the heater core from this pocket that it rests in. I had to release this servo motor from its mounting without disturbing the
connection it has to the door here. That can be pushed back. But I looked into the bottom of this pocket, and there's antifreeze sitting in there. And I also checked the heater core, and it was leaking. So this was worth the effort in taking this out. The heater core has a corroded area on the bottom side where it's wet, and that pretty much takes care of the issues regarding whether this job was necessary. Again, to take this out, you just have to release 4 nuts that hold the cap on and just pull this straight up. You have to move the servo motor to get it out of there. Okay, with the new heater core, you have to transfer the wrapping that's on the old heater core onto the new one. And that's this material here. As you can see, it fits up and around like this. Okay, I have remounted the core into its housing here in this unit, this plenum. I had to move this servo motor to the side to get this case back together. It did pop off up here, and you have to put a lock ring back on here. Be careful, that appears to control the main door on this apparatus. This is the heater plenum with the core installed for a 1989 town car. I just reinstalled a new core in here. Again, there are 2 mounting studs that are reached underneath this inside the passenger compartment at the bottom. They hold this to the firewall, and this stud up here comes through the firewall and is nutted on next to the heater core hoses. These are the heater core inlet hoses that are pipes that you see when you open the hood compartment. This is a fairly sizable apparatus that has a number of servo type motors on it and compartments. It's pretty heavy actually, and it's going to have to be reinstalled. Okay, this is the mounting area for the heater core plenum in a 1989 Lincoln. You can see the heater hose line ports at the top there, and just to the left of that, where that gluey mess is, there's a hole which is where the stud goes to the outside for holding that in place. Down below, the studs are actually part of the firewall here, and that's what it bolts to. I don't know what that heater apparatus is, or whether that's a temperature sensor. The rest of the area, the unit is mated up to several openings here. There's a big opening right there, one back over there. Not really many connections to be made, but a little bit tricky. Okay, here's where we're at on this heater core replacement project, 1989 Lincoln. I just placed the dash back into position. I've temporarily put a couple of screws in to hold it where it normally would be until I test out this job, which will be in a couple hours or less here. I'm going to leave the dash like this. There's a fairly slim chance I'm going to take this out again, but right now everything is back in place. The plenum is sitting right up in here. It's got about 0 tolerances to the dash and the firewall. That's how snug this thing fits in there. It's a pretty tough task to get this thing back up in there. It's fairly high up in the area behind the dash, although the mounting pins that are below down here, along with the pipes, help you to get it into position pretty easy. It's just being able to lift it up and get it past some obstacles that appear to be there when you're working on it. And I still have a few connections to make on the equipment. But anyway, I'm glad to be at this point in the progress on this part of it. Yeah, this is how the dash looks from the windshield area without the pad cover on it. Moving to the engine side, I still have to reconnect the heater hoses. That area where those are is back in here. You can see the pipes there. One, I have the hose on it. I have to work on that. And there's a couple other minor details. I've already bypassed this thermal lockout vacuum lines. Well, I just took the car out on the road to be sure that everything works, since you really don't want to put things back together until you know that you're not going to have a problem. I have the dash in temporarily, and decided to do a vacuum out and wash the car despite the rust. And now, since the blower and everything works perfect and the air is nice and fresh, I'm going to go back home and reinstall the rest of this thing and feel great about it. The fun job of putting these panels back in place in a car like this is that you put the plastic in there, and then you really have to search around for the mounting of the screw. I actually, in desperation, came to this, an ice pick. You actually place that in the hole, and when you have the piece in position, you also find the actual screw hole by using this as a guide, and that helps a lot. Well, this wraps up the biggest automotive job that I've ever done. The car is back together. I just installed the last screw, and having test driven it a while ago, appears everything is normal. So I go put the mats back and clean up what I've got here, and this job is done.